The story begins. Takamine-Taka is the goddess of this school. She always ranks first in every field. From academics to sports. Takamine is also the president of the student council. Ever since her first year, she has held the second rank. But no one has ever dared to surpass Takamine to take the first place. Takamine is seen as a symbol of perfection. And she truly is a goddess. In complete contrast, our main character is a boy named Koshi Sirota. He is such an ordinary student that he's almost invisible. And up until now, he hasn't had a single close friend. In everyone's eyes, Sirota is nothing more than a ghost in the classroom. The two of them are like light and shadow. But the only thing they have in common is, they once attended the same middle school. Takamine is the kind of person everyone wants to be with, while Sirota has never even dared to think about such a thing. Until that fateful day, everything seemed to change. One afternoon, Sirota hid inside the equipment room to have his lunch. He ate while taking out his math test paper to review. Sirota felt his scores were as terrible as always. His face clearly showed disappointment. Right at that moment, the sound of the door echoed. Sirota panicked and quickly hid behind a storage shelf. He peeked through a small gap. And Sirota realized that the person who had just entered was Takamine. He was about to sneak out. But his eyes accidentally caught a sight that nearly stopped his heart. Takamine was changing her clothes. And it seemed like she wasn't wearing a bra. The poor guy could see every detail of the goddess. He thought to himself, damn it, did I just see the goddess's chest? Sirota felt both guilty and thrilled at the same time. He never imagined he'd ever get to see Takamine like that. After she finished changing, Takamine left the room without noticing him. Sirota let out a sigh of relief, while his heart was still pounding wildly. That afternoon, when the teacher entered the classroom and announced that he would hand back the test papers, Sirota still couldn't stop thinking about what had happened earlier. But when his turn came, he went up to get his paper and saw that he scored 52 points. That made Sirota overjoyed, because it meant he had passed the subject. Right after that, the teacher called Takamine's name. The teacher said, "This time, that's quite strange. You didn't get a perfect score this time?" That made Takamine a bit surprised. She looked at her test paper and saw that she got 98 points. Takamine tilted her head and asked, "Maybe you graded it wrong, sir?" But the teacher confirmed, "No, I graded it carefully." While the whole class started murmuring, Sirota suddenly noticed something strange. Takamine slipped her hand under her skirt. Then, out of nowhere, she pulled down her underwear. Right in front of Sirota's eyes. Her pale thighs and perfect figure were completely revealed. Sirota froze in shock. Suddenly, a flash of light appeared, followed by the image of a butterfly flying through space. Then everything disappeared. Sirota jolted awake. He was sitting in the classroom again. The teacher had just called his name to come receive his test paper. He walked up to get it. And it really was 52 points. Right after that, the teacher called Takamine's name again. "Congratulations, you got a perfect score this time." Sirota was stunned. Wait, wasn't it 98 just a moment ago? So Sirota realized that he must have been dreaming all along. That afternoon, Sirota decided to go see Takamine to get some answers. He knocked on the door of the student council room. Takamine invited him in from inside. "What's the matter, Sirota-kun?" she asked. Sirota went straight to the point. "This morning, I saw that you scored 98 points. But later, your score became perfect." He realized something about it felt really strange. Takamine's expression suddenly changed. She stepped closer, her eyes turning serious. "You haven't told anyone else about this, have you?" Sirota fell silent. "No, I haven't told anyone," he replied. Takamine moved even closer and pinned him against the wall. She said, "You saw my chest in the equipment room, didn't you?" Sirota's heart nearly stopped. She found out, he thought. But out loud, he desperately denied it. "And no, I didn't. I didn't see anything." Takamine gave him a mysterious smile. "All right then, let's say nothing happened." She calmly poured a glass of water and handed it to him. Sirota took the glass, his hands trembling. He accidentally spilled the whole glass on Takamine. Her entire body was drenched. Sirota panicked. He quickly bent down to wipe the floor. But when he looked up, he froze. Takamine was taking off her shirt. Once again, that butterfly appeared. The space around them began to distort. And then, time seemed to rewind. Sirota suddenly woke up. This time, Takamine was still wearing her shirt. She calmly said, "Did you spill the water? Could you wipe it up for me? If I don't, I might catch a cold." Sirota blushed, but he still moved closer. He gently used a towel to wipe her chest. Takamine stared straight at him and asked, "Don't you notice anything strange?" She frowned slightly. "I'm starting to get annoyed by how dense you are." Then, she grabbed Sirota's hand and placed it directly on her chest. "Now do you realize it?" she said. Sirota could only blush furiously. His heart was pounding wildly. But his hand, almost on reflex, moved on its own. That made Takamine furious, and she punched him straight in the chest. "Idiot, don't you realize my bra just disappeared?" Sirota was shocked. "But you were wearing it just a moment ago. Where did it go now?" Takamine sighed and said, "To be precise, that's my special ability. Because Takamine is a pure goddess. And every time she takes off her underwear, time rewinds by a certain amount." Sirota was completely confused. Takamine continued explaining, "When my underwear disappears, the power is activated. As for where those things go, I honestly have no idea. But surprisingly, you still remember everything, while everyone else doesn't." She added, "The reason is because you've seen the sensitive parts of my body. That probably made you an exception." Sirota was stunned. How could that even be possible?" Takamine smiled gently. "You're probably wondering why I have this ability, right? The answer is simple, because I was chosen." She went on to explain that since she was a child, Takamine had always wanted to become perfect. She worked tirelessly in her studies and trained her body to achieve absolute perfection. But no matter how perfect a person may be, there will always be times when they make mistakes. And whenever she makes one, she uses this power to turn back time and fix everything. President Takamine looked straight at Sirota with a proud and confident tone. She said, "You understand now, don't you? I am the chosen one. And I am also the only person suited for this power." Sirota was utterly confused. Deep down, he just wanted to stay far away from this crazy girl. He quickly refused. "I don't understand a thing, President. You definitely have a problem, however." Takamine smiled mysteriously. She revealed that her ability was indeed perfect. But to avoid unnecessary trouble, she always had to carry spare underwear with her. Because Sirota happened to discover this secret, she decided to make him her mobile wardrobe. Hearing that, Sirota was horrified. He replied, "I was living peacefully. Why on earth would I become your servant?" Then Takamine stepped closer. She smiled faintly. "Benefits, you ask? Don't you feel honored to be chosen by someone as brilliant as me?" Hearing that, Sirota tried to walk away, but Takamine grabbed his hand. The two struggled for a moment. Then both of them fell onto the floor. Sirota accidentally ended up on top of her, making the situation look extremely ambiguous. Suddenly, Takamine screamed, making everyone outside think that Sirota was attacking her. But when the door opened, the scene before their eyes left everyone stunned. A male student was lying on top of the student council president. There was no way for Sirota to explain himself. As a result, he was completely misunderstood. He was dragged out, and someone even called the police. Meanwhile, Takamine was comforted by the female students. She pretended to shed tears. But amid the crowd, she glanced at Sirota and smiled. At that moment, Sirota finally realized, "I've been set up." The police soon arrived and handcuffed him. In desperation, Sirota pleaded with Takamine. He begged her to use her power to go back to the moment before everything happened. Takamine looked at him with great interest. In a superior tone, she said, "You want me to help you? Huh? Then promise to become my mobile wardrobe," she said. Sirota had no other choice. He lowered his head and agreed reluctantly. Takamine gave a triumphant smile. She activated her power. Suddenly, time began to rewind, but when everything returned to normal, she coldly said, "Now you understand your place, don't you?" Sirota remained silent. He felt like a slave bound by invisible chains. Takamine, on the other hand, looked completely at ease. She said, "You should be grateful to me. I just saved you from a rape charge." That made Sirota furious. He quickly retorted, "But you're the one who caused that situation." Takamine raised an eyebrow. With a threatening tone, she said, "Do you want to be accused again?" Hearing that, Sirota froze in fear. He immediately knelt down. "I'm sorry, President," he said, seeing that he had learned his place. Takamine assigned him his first task, helping her put her underwear back on. Sirota was dumbfounded. He asked why she couldn't do it herself. Takamine gave him a sharp look. "Do you want to go to jail?" she replied. "Mobile wardrobe?" he muttered. And so, the poor guy reluctantly did as she said. His hands trembled as he obeyed, terrified of the monster standing before him. That made Takamine burst into laughter. But when she noticed that he had his eyes tightly shut, she asked, "Didn't you already see my chest earlier?" Sirota's face turned bright red. He stammered, That was an accident." The older girl couldn't resist teasing the innocent boy. "You're pretending to be shy. But I bet you're thinking something dirty. Aren't you?" Sirota immediately protested. "No, I'm not." Takamine gave another order. "Now put my bra on. Open your eyes and hurry up." Sirota froze in place, but she didn't give him a chance to resist. Takamine smiled as if enjoying her own little game. Suddenly, the police burst into the room again. But everything turned out to be just an illusion, a replay within Sirota's dream. He jolted awake, his body drenched in sweat. "So, it was all just a dream?" he muttered. But when he picked up his phone, Sirota saw a message from Takamine. "Don't be late." "Okay, wardrobe," she repeated. The word alone sent chills down Sirota's spine. His first day as the mobile wardrobe had officially begun. At school, Takamine was as radiant as ever. She still acted bright, kind, and friendly, making everyone adore her, but only Sirota felt uneasy. He couldn't believe that the perfect girl everyone admired was actually the one manipulating him behind the scenes. Suddenly, Takamine greeted him in front of everyone, making the whole school buzz with shock. "Wait, did the president just say hi to that guy?" Whispers spread all over the hallway. Hearing that, Takamine simply smiled. She leaned close to Sirota's ear and whispered, "Meet me in the student council room before homeroom." Inside the room, she placed a small bag in front of him. "Open it," she said. Sirota did as told, and froze the moment he saw what was inside, a bag full of women's underwear. In a calm, casual tone, Takamine said, "These are the undergarments you'll carry for me every day. A wardrobe should always be ready at all times. Understand?" Sirota was petrified. "Always be ready? What do you mean by that?" he asked. Takamine calmly replied, "Whenever I activate my power, whether you're in class or out on the street, you must help me put them on immediately." Hearing that, Sirota could only nod in obedience. He knew that from that very moment, his peaceful life had officially come to an end. As Sirota reacted nervously, he glanced around the room, afraid that if anyone saw this scene, the consequences would be disastrous. But Takamine remained stern. With a voice that allowed no argument, she said, "If I wait until break time, I can only use my power once per period. And I need your flexibility. Whenever I take something off, you have to help me put it back on immediately." Sirota was speechless. Sweat kept dripping down his face. In his mind, he prayed desperately, "Please, don't make me practice right now." However, Takamine stayed firm. She emphasized that if Sirota refused, she would erase the fact that she had ever saved him. Faced with that threat, Sirota finally surrendered. "All right, I'll do my best," he said weakly. Hearing that, Takamine smiled. "If you do well," she said, "I'll give you a reward." Sirota looked doubtful. "What kind of reward, exactly?" he asked. But before he could react, Takamine suddenly pushed him down onto the floor. A familiar teasing smile appeared on her lips. But this time, there was no one around to interrupt. Sirota blushed deeply, stammering, "Stop joking around already." Takamine let out a soft laugh. Then whispered, "I don't easily let anyone see my underwear. You know, but since it's you, I trust you enough to allow it." Suddenly, the room fell silent. Sirota hesitated and asked, "Aren't you embarrassed to let me see you like that?" Takamine turned her head slightly and sighed. Deep down, she had once thought she could manipulate Sirota with her charm. But it seemed he wasn't as easily controlled as she had imagined. Their conversation ended in a tense silence. As Sirota was about to leave, Takamine reminded him, "Remember to return them after school." She deliberately added in a teasing tone, "Though I bet you'd love to take them home. Wouldn't you?" Sirota blushed again and snapped back. Who would even want that? The next class began, and the teacher announced that the class would be analyzing a poem. While everyone was getting ready, Sirota couldn't shake off his uneasiness. Takamine's warning still echoed in his mind, "Whenever I activate my power." You must assist me immediately." Suddenly, the teacher called Takamine's name to read the poem aloud. She stepped forward with her usual confidence. Her voice was calm, rich, and full of emotion, silencing the entire class. Both the teacher and the students praised her endlessly. While everyone applauded, Sarota couldn't help but wonder. She's already perfect, so why does she still need to use her power? Just then, a strong gust of wind blew through the classroom window. The teacher asked someone to close it. Takamine quickly stood up and volunteered. But as she turned around, she subtly signaled Sarota to get ready. Sarota froze in place, completely confused by what she meant. But Takamine had already made up her mind. Even though her previous recitation was flawless, she still wanted to reach the ultimate level of perfection. Suddenly, time began to rewind again. And once more, the teacher asked her to recite the poem. This time, the teacher noticed something different in Takamine's expression. The teacher asked if she was all right. But Takamine simply smiled, reassuring him that she was fine. Then, as the wind blew again, she began her second recitation. It was the same poem as before. Yet this time, her tone and emotions were completely different. The poem felt so deep and moving that the entire class seemed to drift into another world. When she finished, a thunder of applause erupted across the room. But Sarota alone noticed something others didn't. Takamine had deliberately timed her reading with the exact moment the wind blew, creating a perfectly dramatic effect. Then her gaze shifted toward him, as if to say, "See? I told you." Sarota couldn't deny it. Her obsession with perfection goes beyond anything I ever imagined. While he was still lost in thought, Takamine flicked a small piece of paper toward him. Then she mouthed a silent message. That's when Sarota suddenly remembered his duty. Panic struck him. They were in the middle of class, how could he possibly act now? Sarota thought about waiting until the break. But to his horror, he noticed Takamine's skirt lifting slightly. He quickly gestured to warn her. But Takamine seemed to deliberately ignore him, because she wanted to create this situation. Right at that moment, Takamine called out loudly, "Sarota, you dropped your eraser." Sarota was confused because his eraser was still on the desk. But he quickly realized it was a secret signal. She was creating an opportunity for him to help without drawing suspicion. Sarota's heart pounded in his chest. He bent down to pick up the eraser, while discreetly helping Takamine adjust her outfit. In that fleeting moment, he almost forgot to breathe. Fortunately, no one noticed. The teacher announced the end of the period. Sarota let out a sigh of relief. He thought everything was over. But when Takamine stood up to turn in her assignment, he froze. Part of her underwear was showing beneath her skirt. If anyone noticed, her perfect image would be ruined. Sarota recalled her words. "I'd be so embarrassed if anyone saw my underwear. But I trust you." That sentence made it impossible for him to stay still. Sarota hurriedly stood up, accidentally prompting the teacher to call his name instead. "Since when did you change your name to Takamine?" Sarota panicked. I must have misheard because I was half asleep." "Sir." The teacher sighed and shook his head. "Well, since you're already up, hand in Takamine's assignment for her." But when he finished turning in the assignment and was about to return to his seat, Takamine gently grabbed his hand, signaling that the mission wasn't over yet. Reluctantly, Sarota helped her adjust her outfit discreetly. During that moment, his leg accidentally brushed against Takamine's thigh. He could feel the softness and warmth, making his heart pound violently. Meanwhile, Takamine only gave a faint, mysterious smile. During class, the teacher suddenly called Sarota's name, startling him. Takamine, sitting at the next desk, seemed to have just said something. But when Sarota asked her about it, she avoided his gaze and didn't answer. The next scene took place in the student council room. Sarota and Takamine sat facing each other. Takamine looked satisfied that he had completed the task. Meanwhile, Sarota couldn't help but scold her for her earlier boldness. Takamine smiled, admitting that she only wanted to test how well he could handle the situation. She gently apologized for making him nervous, but still asserted that she had always trusted him. Sarota found that hard to believe, thinking she was lying. Unexpectedly, Takamine asked him in return why he always helped her. That question left him flustered, unable to give a clear answer. Takamine suggested a theory. Maybe Sarota didn't want anyone else to see her underwear. And if that was true, She said she was quite happy about it. The atmosphere between them grew quiet and tense. Sirota tried to break the awkwardness, asking Takamine to stop teasing him, but she simply replied softly, "I'm being serious." Sirota suddenly remembered the strange sound Takamine made when the teacher called his name earlier. He was about to ask about it, but she quickly covered his mouth, making both of them even more flustered. The next day, at school, Takamine was still the goddess in everyone's eyes. The moment she carried a few stacks of books, several male students rushed to help her, but suddenly, she sat down and pulled the zipper on her skirt, leaving everyone stunned. It turned out she was just checking her outfit. Remembering that Sirota, the one assigned to manage her personal locker, hadn't been able to help her the day before, she sternly reminded him not to make the same mistake again, or he would be punished. Sirota was the only one who had seen the real Takamine behind that perfect exterior. In front of others, she was always kind and graceful. But when it was just the two of them, when they were alone, she became strict, even somewhat domineering. She often made Sirota memorize every rule about serving her, and if he forgot, she would make him repeat them until he knew them by heart. Sometime later, Sirota was forced to retake his physical education exam because he hadn't met the requirement of running continuously for 30 minutes. Seeing how exhausted he was, Takamine, as the student council president, took a megaphone and went out to the field to train the students with poor stamina. Under her supervision, everyone was full of energy, except for Sirota, who was gasping for breath and nearly collapsed. Takamine stopped him to correct his running posture, but Sirota's eyes accidentally fell on her chest, which was very close to him. Caught in the act, he was punished to run for another 30 minutes. When Sirota was nearly exhausted, Takamine suddenly did something that stunned the entire field. She took off her gym pants, announcing that she would run alongside Sirota until he finished the test. The whole field erupted in chaos, while Sirota didn't even dare to look at her. Returning to the starting line, Takamine sternly told him to run with all his strength so as not to embarrass her. Sirota gathered every bit of strength he had left, running as if he were about to collapse. Takamine rode her bicycle alongside him to cheer him on. When she lifted herself off the seat, Sirota panicked because that posture was far too risky. One strong gust of wind, and everyone would see everything. Without hesitation, Sirota ran close to her bike, using his own body to shield her throughout the final stretch. Even though he was completely exhausted, when the test finally ended, he collapsed to the ground. Gasping for breath, Takamine walked over, handed him a spare set of clothes, and asked how he felt. Sirota replied that even though his performance wasn't impressive, he was proud because he had given it his all. Takamine smiled softly, saying that perhaps his true motivation wasn't for himself. She then walked away with her usual graceful composure, leaving Sirota with an inexplicable sense of peace. That night, Sirota suddenly remembered he still had Takamine's gym bag and hadn't returned it. At first, he just intended to peek inside to see what was in it. But before he could, his phone rang. Takamine was calling, lightly scolding him, saying she was rummaging through her locker because she was missing some clothes. That made Sirota feel confused, unsure whether he should return it right away or pretend he'd forgotten. Was this another test from the president? If he kept following her orders, he'd be nothing more than her servant. Over time, Sirota had been made to do plenty of strange things for Takamine, from helping her change clothes to tidying up small messes. Each time, his sense of pride was tested a little more. Yet Takamine always had the upper hand. She sent him a few suggestive photos, saying that since she had no clothes left, she had to wear her gym uniform outside, even joking that, "It's a bit cold down below with nothing covering it." Those words made Sirota blush, unsure whether to worry or save the pictures as evidence. He didn't expect that Takamine was actually at the park, jogging at night in her gym outfit. Even though he knew she was confident and strong, Sirota couldn't shake off his concern. That uneasy feeling pushed him to bring her bag there himself, hoping she wouldn't run into trouble. Just as Takamine was about to text Sirota to tell him to bring her clothes, she suddenly heard footsteps behind her. He had really come, though part of her felt touched. She still tried to maintain her usual proud demeanor. She praised Sirota for taking initiative, saying that he was finally beginning to understand what it meant to be a true personal locker manager. In truth, Sirota hadn't come out of obligation, but out of genuine concern. He had prepared himself to be scolded, but to his surprise, Takamine thanked him instead. Even though she tried to hide her emotions, she still couldn't resist teasing him a little, making his face turn bright red. To her, Sirota was the only one who truly understood the real person behind her perfect image. Because of that, a strange feeling began to stir inside Takamine. She secretly hoped he would always stay by her side. After receiving her bag, Takamine held it close to her chest as if trying to keep the warmth Sirota had brought. She walked away silently, leaving him standing there, dazed, thinking to himself, if only the president could always be that gentle. A few days later, during a swimming competition, Takamine easily took first place despite having strong opponents. But that victory didn't satisfy her. She returned to the starting line, choosing to swim backstroke to prove her absolute confidence and grace. Sirota, who was watching from the stands, Sirota couldn't take his eyes off Takamine's graceful figure gliding through the water. When she surfaced, he instinctively followed her with his gaze, then quickly turned away, afraid she might notice. But Takamine, ever perceptive, caught that fleeting look. After the match ended, she approached Sirota, asking which part of the competition impressed him the most. Though he tried to hide it, his flustered eyes and blushing face revealed everything. Takamine smiled softly, leaned closer, and whispered, "Actually, I wasn't wearing a bra during the match." That sentence left Sirota completely frozen, realizing that his limits were being pushed too far. To end her teasing, Takamine invited him to meet her after school. That afternoon, she brought Sirota to a lingerie store, saying she needed to buy some new clothes to wear at home. She claimed she couldn't decide which style to pick, so she wanted the opinion of her personal locker manager. Sirota, embarrassed but unable to refuse, followed her inside. The more flustered he looked, the more amused Takamine became. She even teased him, saying, "You'll have to help me put it on sooner or later anyway." When she went to try on the clothes, Takamine suddenly lifted her skirt, ordering Sirota to choose right there on the spot. Cornered and flustered, he hastily picked a revealing set, then quickly changed his mind and chose a modest blue one instead. Afraid of being misunderstood, Takamine looked surprised and asked why he changed his choice. Sirota answered honestly, "Because to me, you're like the sky, free, deep, and proud. Blue suits you the best." Hearing that, Takamine fell silent. It was one of the rare times she didn't respond with teasing or a playful remark. When they stepped out of the elevator, she quietly said, "I won't wear that one," then turned away, hiding a faint smile and the blush spreading across her cheeks. Deep down, she knew that outfit had already become a precious memory, a symbol of the feelings she didn't want to lose. From that day on, Takamine began to notice Sirota showing signs of a cold. Seeing him weaker and quieter than usual, she took the initiative to link her arm with his after school, wanting to take him home to rest. When they stepped into Sirota's room, Takamine was surprised to see that his living space was tidy and more organized than she had expected. Curious, she opened his laptop under the excuse of looking for study materials. But in truth, she just wanted to see if he was hiding something. After checking through Sirota's computer, Takamine realized there was nothing unusual, just a few ordinary study files. Sirota immediately closed the laptop, reminding her not to invade other people's privacy so casually. Takamine only laughed, justifying herself by saying it was a maintenance check to make sure he was still functioning properly. Despite her constant teasing, Takamine still took the initiative to go into the kitchen and cook a meal for Sirota. Before leaving, she teasingly remarked that she would cook while being lightly dressed. Sirota panicked, afraid she might catch his cold, so he hurriedly pushed her out of the room. When he woke up, he found a bowl of warm porridge and a damp towel already set on the table. Everything had been prepared by Takamine. She gently told him to rest well and finish the porridge. While eating, Sirota couldn't help but wonder why someone who always teased him suddenly became so caring. Perhaps it was her way of encouraging him to keep trying. While cleaning up, Takamine overheard Sirota complimenting her cooking. A faint sense of happiness flickered in her heart. Without saying a word, she slipped under the blanket and lay close beside him to keep him warm. Sirota's face turned red. He tried to stay calm, but his heart was pounding uncontrollably. Before he could react, Takamine had already taken off her jacket, smiling as she explained that she was just sweating from gym class. And that she didn't smell bad at all. She teased him further, asking if Sirota had any unusual preferences. He could only plead with her to stop, but Takamine kept clinging to him, saying she just wanted to help the sick boy fall asleep more easily. In that soft, hazy warmth, Takamine gently apologized for going too far. Her words made Sirota freeze. He had never expected to hear an apology from someone as proud as her. She pulled him closer, saying that this method would help him sleep better. In his drowsy state, Sirota could still hear her gentle voice, and his heart felt strangely at ease. Even if he didn't know whether Takamine truly cared or not, at least in that moment, she was no longer the cold, untouchable student council president, but just a warm and gentle girl like anyone else. Before falling asleep, Sirota gathered his courage and asked why she was being so kind to him. Takamine only smiled, gently wishing him a good night. As she left, she saw a few children playing near the park, and suddenly remembered her own lonely childhood. Back then, she had been shunned by her classmates and only had a stray cat as her friend. Coincidentally, the boy who used to bring milk for that cat was none other than Sirota. That small memory was something Takamine had always kept in her heart. That night, Sirota texted her to thank her, then reheated the bowl of porridge in the fridge. As he ate, he couldn't help but think about Takamine's rare gentleness, and felt as if his fever was returning. The next day, when Takamine found out Sirota had forgotten to do his homework, she immediately offered to help. In return, she jokingly demanded that he strip and spin around 3 times, her usual playful tease. Despite feeling nervous, Sirota refused, determined to finish it on his own. Takamine smiled. She praised him, saying that he had finally understood the joy of making an effort. In class, Sirota used every spare minute to finish his work, while Takamine continued to stand out as always. When the teacher accidentally bumped into her, causing her handwriting to go off balance, Takamine was about to use her power to rewind time but stopped herself. She decided to fix it manually, choosing not to rely on her special ability. That action made Sirota realize that she was trying to restrain herself, trying to live more honestly as her true self. During the break, Takamine was asked to help a girl choose a gift for her boyfriend. When the girl complained that a new model had just been released, Takamine briefly thought about using her power to adjust the timing. But once again, she refrained. She simply told the girl that she could exchange the gift if it hadn't been used. Throughout the day, Sirota noticed that Takamine looked exhausted, but because of that, he managed to finish his homework on time. After class, Sirota asked worriedly why she kept pushing herself so hard. Takamine smiled, saying that today had been a perfect day for her, one that didn't need to be changed at all. She then teased him, saying that if he really wanted to go back in time, he could start by undressing her himself. Sirota couldn't understand why she had to be so stubborn. But then he realized, what truly mattered wasn't the power itself, but the choices each person made. He closed his eyes, intending to activate his ability. But when he opened them again, he was still standing in the hallway. Takamine had cancelled the activation at the very last second. She didn't want Sirota's hard work to be erased, nor did she want everything to return to how it was before. Before leaving, Takamine said that from now on, she would keep a closer eye on the slave to prevent any unnecessary trouble. She declared that she would personally tutor him during the upcoming summer break. During the summer vacation, Sirota was invited to Takamine's house for makeup lessons. Even with her patient guidance, he kept making mistakes, leaving Takamine sighing helplessly. In the end, she had no choice but to use her ability to rewind time a few minutes and reteach her slow-witted student. Before starting again, Takamine went to the kitchen to make some coffee to stay alert. She regretted not being able to let Sirota try her mother's homemade cake. Since her parents were away on a trip, leaving only the two of them in the house, Sirota tried to study again, but he kept making the same mistakes. Takamine began to suspect that he was deliberately dragging things out so he wouldn't have to leave early. There was also a cat in her house, and when she saw how fascinated Sirota was, Takamine went to look for it so she could bring it out and show him. After a while, Sirota finally saw the cat, but to his surprise, Takamine appeared dressed in a cat cosplay outfit. She mimicked the real cat's movements so perfectly that Sirota couldn't focus on his studies at all. The more she got into character, the more flustered Sirota became. In the end, they had to stop the lesson because it was getting late and heavy rain had started outside. Worried that it wasn't safe for Sirota to go home in such weather, Takamine suggested that he stay the night. She had already prepared blankets, pillows, and even dinner for the two of them. While they were talking, Takamine heard a noise outside the door, so she picked up the cat and held it in her arms. She tried to tell a few funny stories to ease the tension. Then, suddenly, the lights went out. Takamine sat down on the bed, asking Sirota to tell her about his elementary school days. But he only talked about random, trivial memories, which made her feel slightly bored. Finally, Sirota mentioned a girl who used to take care of a stray cat with him under the rain. He once confessed to that girl, but after being rejected, she disappeared, and so did the cat. Hearing that, Takamine fell silent for a moment, then softly asked, "If you met her again, what would you do?" Sirota hesitated. He asked if Takamine happened to know that girl. Takamine looked slightly surprised, then smiled and said that as long as he still remembered, that was enough. A flash of lightning lit up the sky, startling Takamine. Even though she tried to act brave, she was still afraid of thunder, and instinctively jumped into Sirota's arms. At that moment, Sirota realized that beneath her usual cool and composed exterior, Takamine also had a soft and endearing side. When the lights came back on, Sirota said there was no need to prepare dinner, but Takamine immediately gave him a sharp glare. She declared that she would still cook, but under one condition: they would role-play as husband and wife. And whoever broke character halfway would remain single forever. Sirota reluctantly agreed. Takamine dragged him into the kitchen to help. Wearing an apron, she began instructing him like a diligent wife. Every time Sirota fumbled, she would tease him playfully. Because he was too distracted by watching Takamine, he accidentally burned the sausages. Seeing that, Takamine used her power to rewind time and fix the mistake, teaching him all over again. After a while, the two of them sat down to eat together. According to the game's rules, the wife had to serve food for her husband. Though Sirota felt embarrassed, he obediently followed along. Takamine seemed delighted, chatting and eating as if they were a real couple. The meal ended in a calm and pleasant atmosphere. Sirota volunteered to clean the dishes, while Takamine was invited to take a bath first. However, she refused, saying they could bathe together to save time. Although Sirota blushed and protested, Takamine just laughed, saying he was taking things too seriously. She insisted it was all part of a special training session, meant to make him stronger and more confident in his work. Sirota knew Takamine was only teasing, but her closeness made it impossible for him to focus. Takamine chuckled softly, saying that in that case, the training was already working. A few days later, the school held a fireworks festival, and Takamine called Sirota to escort her there. She said that tonight, she just wanted to relax and enjoy the festival without being bothered by anyone. She wore an elegant yukata, looking both graceful and proud. Before heading out, she asked Sirota to help adjust her outfit, worried it might come loose in the crowd. Though embarrassed, Sirota awkwardly helped her, just hoping to finish quickly before anyone noticed. On their way, they overheard some people whispering, saying that Sirota wasn't good enough for Takamine. He stayed silent, hoping she hadn't heard them. But Takamine, who rarely cared about what others thought, simply smiled confidently and pulled him along. As they passed by couples holding hands, Sirota couldn't help but imagine what it would be like to date Takamine like that. When the fireworks began, Takamine looked up at the dazzling sky and softly said she didn't want the night to end on a dull note. Instantly, she activated her power to rewind time by a few minutes, hoping to find a more perfect moment. This time, she chose the path that led across the nearby bridge, in the place where many couples were standing and watching the fireworks. She stopped in the middle of the bridge and told Sirota to wait for a moment. He thought she was trying to create a romantic moment, so his heart began to race. But Takamine only softly asked him to help fix her outfit one more time. Though a little disappointed, Sirota did as she asked. After several rewinds and replays, Takamine still couldn't find the perfect moment she was looking for. Sirota began to realize that it seemed each time she rewound time, It was just to prolong their moments together. He thought to himself, maybe Takamine just wanted to watch the fireworks a little longer with him. For Sirota, that scene was already perfect, dazzling fireworks, a gentle breeze, and Takamine's smile by his side. When the festival ended, Sirota walked Takamine home. He wanted to ask why she kept using her power to return to that same moment, but decided not to. Perhaps, a part of him didn't want to break the rare, peaceful moment between them. A few days later, Takamine called Sirota, asking if he was free that weekend because she wanted to join him on a visit to Agaku University. Hearing that name, Sirota hesitated a little. To him, Agaku was a place filled with outstanding students, far beyond his own abilities. Takamine understood that very well, but she still wanted to drag him along. During their conversation, she asked Sirota if he had any plans after graduation. Before he could answer, Takamine interrupted, saying that since he was her closet, he only had two options: either attend the same university as her, or be unemployed. If he agreed to study together, she would let him choose any school he wanted. When they met at the campus tour, Takamine stood out so much that everyone passing by couldn't help but turn to look. Sirota felt both embarrassed and proud. While they were exploring the campus, Takamine reminded him not to just look at her, but to pay attention to the school as well. She joked that whether she could become a star student there or not depended on her personal bodyguard. If Sirota agreed to study with her, she wouldn't have to worry about anyone bothering her. Sirota could only shake his head at her vivid imagination. When asked about his future plans, he honestly said that he planned to work to help his parents and take care of his younger sister. Takamine suddenly fell silent. She had thought he would give a casual answer, but she hadn't expected something so realistic. In the end, Takamine smiled, saying that she respected his decision. Even so, she would still make sure to arrange her schedule properly so her closet wouldn't escape his duties. As the two walked to the department introduction area, Takamine glanced at Sirota, her eyes showing a hint of gentleness rarely seen from her. He didn't know what she was thinking, but perhaps in Takamine's heart, her image of him had changed quite a lot from before. During the class session, when it was her turn to ask a question, Takamine suddenly wondered whether graduating at the top of the class from such a prestigious school would bring any concrete advantages. The teacher didn't give an absolute guarantee, but emphasized that students with excellent grades were always highly valued, and advised her not to worry. After hearing that, Takamine fell silent and thought again. A moment later, she quietly corrected a small mistake by rewinding time to the moment just before, to ask that question again. When Sirota looked confused, she simply smiled and explained that she had accidentally said the wrong school name the first time, so she wanted to correct it perfectly. After that, she gestured for Sirota to help her adjust her outfit again, which left him flustered, but he reluctantly complied. As they left the school, Takamine softly remarked that the learning environment there was truly something to dream about. Sirota asked if fixing just a few words like that was really necessary. Takamine replied that, to her, every little detail contributed to a perfect image, something she always wanted to maintain in front of everyone. She also reminded him that since Sirota had chosen to work after graduation, his supporting role would eventually come to an end. She said she would make full use of him during this final year. With that, she turned away, leaving Sirota standing still, unsure whether to feel happy or sad. The next morning, Sirota was still preoccupied with Takamine's words. He tossed and turned all night, not understanding why he felt so heavy-hearted. Just as he arrived at school, Takamine appeared and reminded him to stay focused since morning had already come. But right after that, Sirota noticed that her skirt had gotten caught on her bag and was pulled up. He immediately reacted, rushing over to cover her before anyone else could notice. Takamine looked a little flustered, but still maintained her calm demeanor, making an excuse that she was participating in an energy-saving campaign, and urging Sirota to hurry up because they were running late. Today, she seemed different. She was wearing only one sock, forgot to recharge her train card, and occasionally appeared unusually absent-minded. Sirota was quietly surprised to see someone as perfect as her make such small, careless mistakes. On the train, Sirota was still puzzled by her strange behavior. When the train doors closed, the edge of Takamine's shirt got caught, causing a button to pop off. He quickly reached out to steady her so she wouldn't fall. and everyone's eyes immediately turned toward the two of them. Takamine remained silent, slightly furrowing her brows before resetting time as if nothing had ever happened. That afternoon, when they arrived at cram school, Sirota still remembered the faintly sorrowful look in Takamine's eyes, the look of someone about to let go of something precious. Although he still wanted to take the university entrance exam, he knew tuition fees were a serious issue. So he told himself to work harder instead of just dreaming. As he was leaving the tutoring center, Sirota accidentally bumped into a beautiful girl. She recognized him immediately and hugged him tightly. Leaving Sirota completely stunned, she introduced herself as Eri, his close friend from elementary school whom he had lost contact with for many years. After finishing the enrollment procedure, the two of them went outside to talk. Eri had grown up now, energetic and working as a freelance model. She still had the same innocent charm as before, which made Sirota feel at ease. They took a walk through the park, the place where they used to play as children. Eri brought up the old summer water balloon game they once played. She quickly ran off to buy some balloons. Still full of energy like the child she used to be. When the game started, Eri accidentally burst a balloon, soaking herself completely. Sirota hurried to find a towel to help her, but she just laughed, saying it was fine and teasing that he was still as shy as back then. They both laughed together, dissolving the awkward atmosphere. Sitting under the shade of a tree eating ice cream, Eri asked about Sirota's plans for the future. He admitted that he didn't have a clear plan yet, and that he felt pressured when someone asked him to take the university entrance exam together. He was afraid he wasn't good enough and would end up disappointing that person. After hearing that, Eri smiled, saying that the other person must be very important to him, because if there were no feelings involved, he wouldn't be so concerned. She assured him that the other person definitely cared about him too. It's just that neither of them was willing to admit it yet. Her words left Sirota frozen in place. For a moment, Takamine's image appeared in his mind, the strong girl who sometimes seemed strangely lonely. Sirota suddenly realized that, no matter how many misunderstandings stood between them, Takamine still held a special place in his heart that he couldn't easily forget. While Sirota was still talking with Eri, the nightmare he feared most suddenly came true. Takamine appeared out of nowhere, her expression as cold as ice. He froze on the spot, feeling as if he had just been caught doing something wrong. Seeing Eri resting her arm casually around Sirota's shoulder, Takamine felt an unexpected pang of irritation, though she herself couldn't quite understand why. Trying to remain calm, Takamine asked Sirota about his relationship with the unfamiliar girl. But before Sirota could answer, Eri quickly cut in. Eri said that the two of them were just playing around for fun. She pulled a water balloon from her pocket and explained that it was part of a summer game they used to play as kids. Takamine stood still, feeling both doubtful and embarrassed. Even though she tried to convince herself that this was just a misunderstanding, she couldn't help feeling uneasy seeing how happy they looked together. Eri, still carefree, invited Takamine to join in, saying, "It's worth it even if we get wet." Feeling provoked, Takamine couldn't hold herself back and agreed. Before he could even understand what was happening, Sirota was suddenly slapped across the face. Takamine spoke sternly, saying that such intimate gestures should only be shared between people who truly have feelings for each other, not just anyone. The atmosphere immediately grew tense. Seeing that, Eri quickly explained that they were only playing a water balloon game, and there was absolutely nothing more to it. She then realized that Takamine was actually her old classmate from elementary school PE class, the energetic girl she used to know. Eri quickly made peace, saying that everything had just been a misunderstanding. Takamine, speaking softly, advised them to be more mindful of their actions in public, then excused herself to leave. Eri stopped Takamine for a moment to talk privately, asking Sirota to go buy some drinks. When only the two of them were left, Eri apologized for her overly friendly behavior earlier. She confessed that, since she studied in an all-girls environment, she wasn't used to keeping distance from men. Eri admitted that if she were in Takamine's position, she would also feel upset seeing the person she liked in such a situation. She complimented Takamine, saying she was a beautiful and strong girl, which made Takamine blush slightly. However, Eri still kept her carefree attitude, casually putting her arm around Takamine's shoulder and leaning close to her. When Sirota returned, Takamine immediately warned Eri not to mention the conversation they had just had. Eri nodded, saying she had to leave for a photo shoot, waving goodbye, and promising to see Sirota again at cram school. On the way home, Sirota told Takamine that he had used up all his savings to pay the tuition fees, even though he knew his chances of passing the university exam were slim. Hearing that, Takamine stayed silent for a moment before turning away, scolding him for not telling her sooner. She said that if they combined scholarships and financial aid, they could still find a solution. Even though Sirota's current academic level was weak, she believed she could help him prepare for the exam. Sirota refused because he didn't want to trouble her, but Takamine disagreed. Without saying another word, she used her time reversal ability to force him to accept her offer. She firmly declared that from now on, she would take responsibility for his studies, and the only thing he should say at that moment was, "Thank you." Though reluctant, Sirota still nodded in agreement. From then on, Sirota began visiting Takamine's house regularly for study sessions. Under the watchful eyes of a small cat, they spent long, intense hours together, but those moments were also filled with warmth. Takamine gradually realized that those times made her happier than any other moment in her day. After one tutoring session, Sirota and Eri happened to run into Takamine on their way home. Eri suggested that all three of them have dinner together at a family restaurant. While waiting for their food, Sirota talked about his first class, saying he had already made a few new friends and was starting to feel more comfortable. Watching Sirota and Eri chat happily, Takamine felt a storm rising in her heart again. She tried to appear calm, ordering only a cup of coffee, while Eri filled the table with fries and hamburgers, when a familiar staff member of Eri's came over to greet them. The atmosphere became even noisier. To dispel her jealousy, Takamine began talking about the other day, when Sirota had shown up at her house to study without notice. After leaving the restaurant, Eri found a way to talk to Sirota alone. She apologized for making Takamine misunderstand, and admitted that she already knew the real reason Takamine had joined the cram school. It was because she was afraid he might grow closer to someone else. Eri smiled, saying she already had someone she liked, and hoped Takamine would soon realize her own true feelings. After their conversation, Eri's co-worker from the restaurant came to pick her up, and the two of them left together. What surprised the student council president was that the pair were walking hand in hand down the street, leaving Takamine frozen, unsure how to react. Meanwhile, Sirota was waiting for Takamine at the park to ask about her private conversation with Eri. Takamine smiled teasingly, saying she had just enlightened Eri that Sirota was actually a dangerous wolf. Then quickly changed the subject. She admitted that she had misunderstood Eri before and felt guilty about it. As for Eri, she was currently being pinched on the cheek by Jurek out of jealousy, simply because she had been too close to Takamine. Flustered, Eri hurriedly explained that she and the student council president were just friends, and nothing more. On the last day of summer vacation, the two of them decided to go to the city amusement park to relieve stress. Takamine proactively messaged Sirota to invite him out as a reward for his efforts over the past month, even though she had previously said he didn't need to thank her. Sirota wanted to show his appreciation, so he researched the place carefully to prepare for a perfect outing. When they arrived, he suggested buying drinks first and then walking around together. Takamine intended to use a discount coupon, but Sirota had already gone off somewhere. A little later, he returned with a cup of black coffee, only for Takamine to change her mind and choose a milk coffee instead. Immediately, she activated her time reversal ability to fix the situation, handed him the coupon, then lifted her skirt, asking him to help adjust her pants behind the shop. After that, they entered a souvenir store. While Takamine went to the restroom, she asked him what kind of things he liked. Sirota said he was fascinated by wooden ship models, while she probably liked cute items. Takamine laughed, saying, "No need, every morning I already get to see the cutest thing, myself in the mirror." When Sirota accidentally bought the wrong gift, she reversed time, took him to choose another one, and still didn't forget, making him help adjust her pants again. After that, they moved on to the boating area. Sirota assumed Takamine had experience, but it turned out she didn't know anything. While he struggled to row, Takamine wanted to help, then pretended to slip and fell into the water. She then reversed time again to fix the mistake, as if nothing had happened. Sirota realized there was something unusual about Takamine. When he apologized, fearing he had made her upset, Takamine just smiled and said it was a reward for him for trying so hard all this time. Sirota was touched, realizing that all her strange actions were a way of caring for him. Even though he felt that he was the one who owed her, he was still very happy to be cared for by her. Takamine blushed, but hid it by pretending to scold him. That's still not enough to satisfy me. Today I'll make you spend until your wallet runs dry. After the previous conversation, Eri became even more convinced that Takamine truly had feelings for Sirota. She said plainly thought if Taka cared for him that much, then that must be love. Eri's assertion made Taka blush, while Sirota could only sigh, watching his two close friends argue because of him. On the way back, Sirota began to worry. He was afraid Eri might tease the student council president and get retaliated against. Reaching the door, Sirota heard laughter and some strange voices coming from inside. He pressed his ear to listen, imagining all sorts of suspicious scenarios. But it turned out that Takamine and Eri were just playing with the black cat. The next morning, on the way to school, Takamine felt happy because the weather was chilly, which suited her new winter uniform very well. She hated summer because it made her sweat easily, sometimes causing her clothes to stick to her body. Winter was different. She could layer extra clothes without anyone noticing if she needed to remove something. Hearing her say that, Sirota blushed, letting his imagination run wild. Seeing Sirota looking distracted, Takamine came up with a little game. She gestured for him to look away, then used her time reversal ability for a few seconds. Then she announced the rules of the game. I just removed an item of clothing. You have to guess whether it's on the top or bottom. If you guess wrong, you lose and must fulfill a request from me. Takamine added that if Sirota won, she would wear a bikini to class as a reward. But if he lost, the penalty would be listening to her voice for 24 hours straight. The game began before Sirota could refuse. On the way to the station, Sirota fumbled, trying to figure out how to guess. He thought about sneaking a peek down her collar, but felt embarrassed. He also considered using the reflection in the water, but restrained himself, knowing it was wrong. Upon arriving at the station, Takamine asked him to give his answer. After thinking, Sirota guessed that she had removed her top. He guessed completely wrong. He officially lost. Takamine teased him for not taking advantage of the opportunity. She revealed that she had intentionally stepped through a puddle as a hint. But Sirota didn't have the courage to look. He could only remain silent. Sirota couldn't understand why Takamine liked setting up such bizarre games. She just smiled softly, saying that the severity of the penalty would depend on his actions today. On the train, Takamine changed the topic to the upcoming cultural festival. This year, the class would perform Cinderella. She suggested that Sirota try a role with many appearances, both for practice and to conveniently help her prepare costumes backstage. On the day of the festival, Takamine remained as calm as usual, while Sirota was extremely nervous, even though he had only 2 lines. Seeing this, Takamine took him for a walk to relax, but then put on a serious face, threatening that if he messed up, she would deal with him personally. When Sirota saw Takamine holding his hand, many boys in the class looked at them with envy. Panicked, he dragged her into the festival's spider house to avoid attention. Unexpectedly, Takamine turned pale because she was afraid of spiders, even though she tried to act strong outwardly. A shrill scream combined with a time reversal move immediately revealed her true fear. Takamine quickly tried to explain, saying it was just a performance to relieve stress. But when a dummy fell on her shoulder, she panicked and took off her jacket to escape, while checking if Sirota was okay. Her eyes clearly showed worry, even though she verbally insisted she wasn't scared. Sirota saw that expression and thought to himself that Takamine looked cuter than ever. While he was still smiling, she noticed and scolded softly, "Don't smile like that anymore." At that moment, a spider model fell on her foot, making Takamine scream and cling tightly to Sirota. He could feel the warmth of her body pressed against him. More fake spiders continued to fall, causing Takamine to panic and run, accidentally snagging her skirt on a web. Her outfit was pulled askew, revealing some sensitive areas. Fearing someone might see, Sirota quickly grabbed a piece of cloth to cover her. After escaping, Takamine tried to maintain her proud demeanor, pretending that everything had gone according to plan. The two of them laughed at the absurd situation. But the fun didn't last long. They received news that the male student playing the prince had an accident and couldn't perform. A little later, he was brought back to the classroom, bruised and battered. Despite trying to appear strong, blood still trickled from the corner of her mouth. Sirota worriedly suggested that Takamine use her time reversal ability to help. But she shook her head. She said she couldn't use that power carelessly, and would find another way instead. She stood up, calmly persuading the class that Sirota was the ideal replacement. Just a few minutes later, everyone agreed, and Sirota unexpectedly went from a minor background role to the actual prince. Though he still felt extremely nervous inside. Below the stage, Eri and her friend came to watch, while Takamine, in the role of Cinderella, was ready. When the stage lights turned on, Sirota stepped forward, facing hundreds of expectant eyes. He tried to recall his lines, but his mind went blank. In that silent moment, he remembered the night on the rooftop, where Takamine had held his hand and spoken about the fear of losing what was most important. Thinking of her gaze, Sirota took a deep breath. Summoning all his courage, he lifted his head and looked toward Takamine, and for the first time, truly became her prince. Instead of shining like a prince, Sirota only made himself a burden to Takamine. On stage, she suddenly pushed him down, then used her time reversal ability to go back a few minutes. When time stopped, Takamine dragged Sirota into the dressing room, angry that the performance had been interrupted by his clumsiness. After calming down, she said that the audience's gaze didn't matter as much as him focusing on her, the only person trusting him. Though her words were somewhat stern, Sirota could feel the care hidden in her tone. Thanks to that, he gradually regained his composure to continue the play. At the climax scene, Sirota decisively handed the glass slipper back to Takamine, the Cinderella on stage. Even as the audience cheered, Takamine didn't forget to tease Sirota, making him blush while he knelt to help her put on the shoe. At that moment, the male student who had originally been chosen as the prince, the one who had been in the accident before the festival, suddenly appeared. He openly criticized Sirota as an imposter, not worthy of standing beside Takamine due to his less striking appearance. Eri immediately stood by Sirota, asserting that he had his own charm, though she didn't explain the reason clearly. Backstage, a friend quickly sent a message asking them to improvise so the play wouldn't be ruined. On stage, the troublemaker tried to overact to grab Takamine's attention. Sirota, though not skilled at improvising, still stood in front of her, determined to protect his co-star. He declared that if others didn't know how to respect Takamine's feelings, he would be the one to bring her happiness. His words left the entire audience in silence, while Takamine looked at him with a surprised, different gaze. The story reached its climax. Cheered on by the audience, Takamine rushed over, giving Sirota a kiss that stunned everyone. When the lights went down, she grabbed his hand and led him off the stage, leaving the antagonist standing dumbfounded behind. In her role as Cinderella, Takamine answered her co-star's question with a playful smile, saying, "The pair of shoes has been given to the couple who will leave together." Cheers echoed throughout the hall, especially from Eri, who had always supported them. After the performance, the troublemaker was praised as a catalyst that made the play more dramatic. Meanwhile, the female students were curious about Takamine's kiss, but she only said it was part of the script. Nevertheless, the smug smile on her face revealed otherwise. That night, the festival atmosphere was still filled with laughter. In the classroom office, Takamine praised Sirota for how he handled the situation, while Sirota remained shy, not fully understanding the true reason why Takamine had kissed him in front of everyone. When their eyes met, he mustered all his courage to ask, but Takamine just smiled, letting him guess for himself. When Sirota said it was just a reward, Takamine was dissatisfied, immediately threatening to rewind time and turn everything into a joke. She actually activated her ability, bringing them both back to the moment before the kiss, as if giving him a chance to better understand her true feelings. Though angry, Takamine couldn't hide the gentleness in her eyes. She revealed a slight trace of anticipation, hoping that Sirota would realize the true meaning of that kiss. When the festival ended, she declared that Sirota still had to continue being her closet assistant until he understood her feelings. Under the moonlight, Sirota looked at Takamine's face. And his heart skipped a beat, even though he still couldn't name that feeling. Before leaving for the closing ceremony, Takamine turned back, ordering Sirota to help her put her pants back on as usual. Seeing his distressed expression, she laughed with delight. When he finished, she smiled, held out her hand, and said, "Let's go, my silly one." That's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support Oni-chan in making more fun videos. Thank you all for watching until the end. Much love.